Class, welcome to week 6. We are moving fast in the course, almost at the halfway point, and you have now entered legal week. And depending on your interests and background, this is either one of the best weeks in the course or maybe one of the more challenging or mundane. Personally, I love this week. It is fascinating to me to go through legal structure, the different options for the legal structure of your business. Licenses and taxes are always something that I hope brings peace of mind by the end of the week, so you know what would be expected of you as a full functioning business. And then project 2 is also due this week. So let's jump into the first subject, which is legal structure. For this, you're going to do some research on your own about different legal structures, and I'm actually going to go through this link with you and talk through some of the legal structure options that are out there and try and give you at least some basic background on them. If you reside outside of the United States, this link will not apply to you. This is for those living in the United States or establishing U.S. companies. If you live outside of the United States, please go ahead and do research on that and include your links to your research. That will be similar to the tax assignment that we'll do as the second assignment for this week, which will be a lot of research into your excuse me, your locale, your state or country. So go ahead and follow what research you can find and include that in your essay. And then in a Word document, you will say basically which legal structure would be best for your business and how you would go about setting it up. Make sure you include your reasoning for which legal structure you use. That will be key. And then there's some additional readings down here that will give you some examples of state specific. So Idaho Secretary of State business entities, and so there's some state or locale specific resources here that really will give you a good example of what other resources should be out there depending on where you're at in the world. But let me go through these structures right here, this link, as it will apply to many of you and those who are forming a business outside of the United States. A lot of countries will follow this same pattern of different types of businesses and how it affects liability. So I hope this gives a good basis for everyone as you're considering legal structure. So this is hg.org, and up top here they'll give just a basic overview of things you should consider. I encourage an in-depth reading of this page, as it will give you a lot of good information on not only what different types of legal structures are out there, but how you should consider them and why. I'm going to go through the most popular forms, the most commonly used forms of businesses. The first one is a sole proprietorship. This is very common for a startup business as you're just getting things moving. A sole proprietorship means you own everything, and there's usually not a lot that you need to do to establish a legal structure around a sole proprietorship, because it's one person. That's you. You make all the decisions. The risk to this, the advantage is there's not a in the future, as your company grows, there's not a separate board that can influence power over the organization. You get the decision-making authority. The risk is you bear the legal risk of a lawsuit, and your personal property, your personal assets, can be brought into that lawsuit. And so that's the risk of the sole proprietorship, and that's why once a company gets large enough, you don't see a lot of these, but very, very common for small businesses. A business partnership is almost the exact same as the sole proprietorship, but with two or more people. And so those two or more people hold all of the cards, all of the decision-making authority in the business, as agreed upon when the partnership was formed. Again, the advantage is decision-making authority. No one can really wrest that power away from the partners, but there is some risk to it, some liability, as someone going after the company can go after the personal assets of the partners. I won't go into C&S Corporation details. You are welcome to explore those. There's some tax benefits to C&S Corps. It gets a little bit more complicated, but some distinct advantages there. But I'll let you do your own research on that. The limited liability company is a very, very popular structure, especially as businesses grow, because as the name indicates, limited liability company means you're essentially telling the world that if there is a lawsuit, it is limited to the company's assets. And so what a limited liability company protects the owner of that company from losing personal assets in a lawsuit. The downside to this structure is as the company grows, there are certain requirements for a board of directors, and that board will take some power from the owner of the company, depending on how it's structured, and but the decision-making authority is granted somewhat to other people in this process. And so there's pros and cons to that. But especially for a small company, the companies that you're forming that are just brand new, there's no immediate requirements that a board needs to be formed in that fashion that would take decision-making authority away from the owner. The company is simply just too small. It's just getting off the ground. So this is fairly common. Usually a few more steps to go through in order to establish a limited liability company. Could be some paper filings with your local government. Nonprofit corporations are the last one I'll jump through or talk through here. This is one that is somewhat common depending on your company. You need to have a stated benefit to the community or a service focus. Nonprofit doesn't mean that you're not focused on profit. It simply means that you take those profits and you reinvest them back into the company or in the community. And because of that, there are distinct tax advantages for nonprofit corporations, very advantageous from a tax perspective. However, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of filings to take care of in order to ensure nonprofit status, and a lot of regulations to follow. So there are some distinct tax advantages, but it's got to be earned. So if you have a community service focus to your company, it could be worth exploring. So that'll be it on legal structure. Go ahead and write up your essay. Make sure you spend enough time on this, on the why. Explain the why this legal structure works for you. Your second assignment will be licenses and taxes. And there's, again, a reading here. The challenge in licenses and taxes, as opposed to legal structure, which is consistent across the U.S. and very similar internationally for most countries, licenses and taxes are going to be very specific in your state, territory, locale, country. It's going to be a little different, so you've got to do your research on this one. There's no paper we could draw up that would say, here's the licenses and taxes you need, because they'll vary so much from location to location. But on the flip side, this is a great skill set to have, because as a business owner, you're going to be you need to learn to be comfortable navigating this space. And so do your research on what licenses and taxes you will need for your specific area, and then create a Word document and explain if you will need any licenses, um, in, uh, and which state you'll be in, or which territory, which country, etc. Explain how you came to that conclusion, and then please provide references. Typically URLs, websites are best to demonstrate your research. Excuse me. If you are having trouble finding resources online, I find that a good old-fashioned phone call to your local government helps. Governments are very incentivized to help businesses out, because if you establish a successful business, the taxes from that business will go to that government. So most are very favorable or encouraging to small businesses to form a business in their specific locale. So it's always helpful to reach out by phone to those local businesses, or go visit there and ask what options they have. Obviously, in the current environment, many of those may be restricted or shut down, so that may present unique challenges this semester. But reaching out for help from those resources has been typically fairly successful in the past if you're struggling to find resources online. And then, as a reminder, your project 2 is due, right? That's your website creation. Needs to have an independent domain name. It needs to have some sort of revenue generating function, and some basic structure to the website. So I look forward to grading those, and then your reflection will be due. So that will be it for Legal Week. Please reach out if you have any questions on your legal structure, or have any questions we can pursue together. See if I can answer those. Thanks, everybody.